What's the word of the day? Clarity.
Ah!
Ah! Welcome to the Marketing Team of One podcast, where we have conversations about the issues one-person marketing teams face when trying to meet their goals with limited time and budgets. Now here's your hosts, Eric and Mike. Well, Mike, how's it going?
I don't know. Just kind of stuck in a washing machine, kind of round and around and around.
Well, I mean, I can understand. We kind of had a tough couple of weeks here where just kind of lost the vision a little bit. I think it was a little frustrating where we were kind of...
Yeah, it's like, it wasn't through any like fault, nobody's fault. Like, we're all working.
Yeah.
It was like, there's like something about motion for motion's sake or something like that. But like,
yeah,
it was busy.
Yeah.
But we weren't like accomplishing things.
Well, we had an internal project that we had
Yeah.
set a few of us off on, and I feel like there was a missing part to this, which we felt like we had covered when we had gone over it with everybody involved in the project. But
Yep.
along the way, it seems like we had missed some sort of clarity.
Yeah, I think when we were going through this is really when it was kind of an awakening for some of these, like, we were introspective about it and we looked at like what's going on here and looked at it as a symptom of like a bottleneck, like we've been talking about. When you're not really clear about a bunch of different things, you can just be either everybody off in their own direction, not like working on their own little thing, or just like you just keep questioning yourself, right? Like, is this the right thing? Is this the right place to go? And if you're doing that on your own while other people are working on their things and everything, of course you're going to have challenges getting the thing done or get that initiative moving.
You're going to encounter one of these bottlenecks that we've been talking about. It's just one of those things that all of a sudden you're like so frustrated and
we lost sight of what we were ultimately trying to do. Like, I think we got a little too deep into different, very specific ways of implementing something, but it didn't necessarily meet the ultimate like goal of what we were trying to accomplish with what we were doing.
Yeah.
And then there were a lot of other things. I think we've itemized. We're going to go over the list of all the different pieces, and I think there are pieces that a lot of people would probably resonate with where projects seem to stall. Or not stall, but like just seems way harder than it needs to be. Like, God, why isn't this working? Or why, like that. That's me all the time. But like,
well, it seems like those issues come up and they fall into basically, to me, like two buckets. One would be something around strategy, like this big picture. What are the goals and who's the audience and what's your messaging? Those are kind of the big three, I would say, when you get into the strategy side of it. And then it comes down to there could be that lack of clarity in the tactical doing of the things, where it's like, who's doing what, basically, who's doing what, and what are timelines, what are more of those, scope issues with the project, what are the actual channels that we're going to go down and use as our marketing. So that's kind of what I saw, is I kind of put it into those two big buckets, like, tactics and strategy.
Yeah, it just kind of left us like I don't think we took stock until later when it's down the road and you're like, well, wait a minute, what happened here?
It's a weird thing, and it's a strange dynamic that happens because you assume like, that's what we do every day. And some of us do more of other things than some others. And so it's uneven as far as where that's all distributed as far as the efforts are concerned. But I think one of the main things that came out of it was like, wow, I guess we had made a lot of assumptions. We thought people knew.
What do you mean you're not in my head as much as I am in my head all the time? Yeah. So I think today we just talking through some of these like parts where clarity, if you have more clarity in it, it will smooth out your marketing efforts. I think that's our goal for the day.
Sometimes that clarity needs to be on such a granular level with things that you really do need to dive into the things we're going to talk about. And we're just going to basically hit on about 5 of those points that we talked about. But it's getting into the weeds on that and not making assumptions that even when it comes to like project deliverables.
Well, I think the first thing to be real, like ultimately clear on when you're doing everything is like your goals. Like, what are you striving for? Like, what is the purpose of doing all of this? If you aren't super clear on that you're ultimately going to be putting a lot of wasted effort in maybe a bunch of different directions when you could be pulling on the same rope towards that goal. And I'm not even talking like even internally, like if you're the only person, right? Like if you're doing this over here and then this over here and then this over here, but they're not all ultimately in the pursuit of that one goal, you're spinning your wheels a little bit, right? So like in our case, our problem case, right? We stated what the goal was, but we didn't necessarily, as we were working on things, keep checking against what the goal of it was.
Right.
We got a little lost in the sauce, and looked at what are the different, we got really in the implementation side of things. We started looking, we got too in love with the implementation stuff and didn't keep looking back to like, well, wait a minute. Why are we doing this?
Well, and sometimes it gets, the challenge there is like, what's the goals? Get more sales.
Yeah. I mean, I think the more specific you can be, the better, right? There's the SMART goals framework, right? Like looking at it, is it specific? Is it measurable? Like those types of goals are going to help immensely in steering things, right?
Clarifying
but sometimes
goals.
You might not have those measurements or anything, but the more specific you can be, the better. Like saying we want to put together an offer to increase our sales is probably not specific enough.
No.
Right? You need to know, like you said, the initiative is we're putting together an offer.
Yep.
We know that's part of what we're doing here. Our ultimate goal here is to sell more of X.
Yep.
And we could unpack that a little bit more if we have metrics on what our sales are for that thing. We could say, okay, we want to have this many sales by this date. This is our goal that we need to stay focused on that and not question it.
Right.
Like the goal becomes a filter for everything else you're doing. Yeah. Really.
That's really kind of where we got lost, was like, well, this is the goal, but we think we need to change these things and then move outside and change these things to make these things different so that we can. It was just got too broad, right?
But then we started putting all our focus on one of these things that was way out here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's what's happening. We're talking really vague terms because I guess we just don't want to give specifics.
Give away trade secrets.
Yeah. That's super important.
Very high level.
It's very top secret thing.
Yeah. National defense level stuff.
Yeah.
Man.
So, but yeah, I think because we in this case, we only briefly mentioned the goal and why we wanted to take this initiative on. And if that was our compass, if that was north on our compass, I think we would have, and we checked in every time as we were working, is this in pursuit of this? How is this helping serve this goal? I think we would have, that's one bit of clarity that would have helped us.
One bit. Yes. Okay. What's another bit of clarity that we could have used?
Who are we doing this for? Ideally, when you use the word strategy, like hopefully this is something that's defined at your company level, in your marketing efforts everywhere, that you have a clearly defined target audience and who you're trying to reach. But having that clearly defined, but also having clarity about what their needs are, what their problems they're facing, what are how you can help them. Like the clarity there helps streamline so many other things that you're doing, because you're not, even as if you're doing all this yourself, it makes it, you're not going to be questioning whether this is the right angle, the right approach. You might a little bit, but you're narrowing the scope of what your questioning might be.
I think that's the most important part of this is like, yeah, I know it's for men and women 18 to 30. Okay, great. You've identified an audience by their persona, basically.
Yeah.
But what about those people specifically, or what problems do those people have that you're trying to solve for is the real question there.
And so having that clarity helps in so many different ways, but it's a filter for your actions, right? That clarity, you look through and is this serving this audience? No, it's not. Okay, well then we need to, let's not spend time on that.
Well,
let's keep moving.
If you're clear on that too, not only do you become more efficient in what you're doing because you just have a laser beam focus on fixing that problem, it also opens up the opportunity for creative solutions around that too.
Yes.
It gets people thinking, and not that you need to then shift gears, but write them down, save those ideas for like, oh, we're working on this offer now. The next offer we do, maybe we pick from this list of 3 things that we came up with as we were working on this thing.
Yeah. So the target audience is a huge one. Like having clarity about who this is all for and who you're serving, and it's not just a marketing thing. I think your whole operation should have that awareness.
And
clarity.
Everybody's pulling on the same rope for that whole thing. So then there's probably one more last thing which kind of falls into the same clarity issue as far as strategy is.
It's kind of foundational stuff but I would group it all together under the banner of branding.
Yeah.
Like so, having clarity about your messaging, like what you're saying in different areas, it help streamline your efforts so much more, right? If you know what your value propositions are, you can instead of like trying to find new ones, you're fine tuning your messaging on those few value propositions you have, instead of like trying to unearth a whole bunch of new stuff. You've got that clearly defined, right? Saying who you are, like that's a really fun. I think we see it a lot. Is that companies sometimes can have a hard time describing who they are and what they do.
Well, everybody's tempted to just say we can do everything for everybody.
Yeah.
That's
and
terrible.
So if you're sitting down and you have to do something where you have to describe who you are and what you do and do it succinctly, that's not easy, and it can take a lot of time, and so you end up. That can be a serious bottleneck if you're not really clear on those things, right? And so that all kind of goes into the messaging bucket of, I would say, under your brand. But there's also like brand identity stuff, right? If you don't have it, if you haven't clearly defined some of your identity essentials, going a little bit deeper than just a logo, right? Like what's your what are your colors that you're using for your brand? What are the typefaces? If you're not clear on all that stuff and you're sitting down in Canva and you're going through the list of and you're trying to decide what font you're going to use for this thing, you're spending way more time than you need to.
The problem there is that there's so much information and branding given to people every single day. You have to be really very locked in to making sure that stuff that you're putting out there is so consistent that there's never a mental loss from one thing to the next. When somebody sees that, they immediately make a connection to your brand. And that's the value of really having a valuable brand and having this full system that you just talked about built out, clarified, and easy to find and use by your team. Which is another challenge, of course, is just having it. Where's the toolbox? I need that wrench. Or that logo.
Totally. And like I even see it, I think it's still applicable if you're doing all this yourself. I think it's still applicable there, right? Like if we're talking about kind of spinning your wheels, or we're ultimately looking for marketing efficiency, right? Like trying to be more, when you sit down, you're more efficient at trying to get the job done that you're sitting down to do, right? Like if you're not really clear on some of these things, you don't have that toolkit of things and everything, you might not think of it as being inefficient. You may think of it as being creative and everything, but you might be undermining your ultimate, like what you're trying to do and accomplish with
There's a time and a place for that creativity.
Exactly,
sure.
Right.
Let's go back to messaging, because I think that that's a really critical thing that you need to have buy-in from leadership on very early on, and it's very hard, like you said.
Yeah.
And the messaging comes down to phrases, taglines, word bank stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to use these types of words, and I'm going to have this kind of voice when I'm using it, and be very strict in that. Now, the creative fun part of it is going into that set of tools and writing with just that, but tweaking it for this situation, or tweaking it for this holiday, or tweaking it for putting it as a question, or putting it as a different format, but really refine and limit how you're using that set of words. Because again, just like brand elements, just like colors and fonts, the more you freelance and go off the script, the more confusing everything becomes. There you go, you're bottlenecked.
Yeah, it's an internal, that clarity, and especially if you're working with somebody else who's approving this or making sure that it all runs. If you're clear as a team as what you're trying to say, you're not going to have those multiple revisions. It's going to be a lot cleaner process. It's easier to get buy-in on all these core things early. And it streamlines things later for you. And
you may want to just keep building out that word bank, or that set of phrases, or how you say this about this product or service. Like, get all those in the can, as it were. And then all you're doing maybe is just tweaking a word or two here or there and removing things. But just then everybody's like, yeah, looks great. Go for it.
Overall, if you have an agreement on those branding, the core brand stuff from everybody involved, it will streamline.
Well, and developing a brand is something that takes time. And it takes over the course of, we just finished, you're kind of still, you're on the tail end of finishing one for a client, and it's taken months. And what's good about that process is then they're going to have that toolkit at the end of the day, but they've also given thought to it over many different days.
You're still working in a small part of your farm. You're not like opening up the whole farm like change you're really just putting probably a tweak on something. You're not like starting from scratch with something in that, because you've already narrowed in on a certain area. So it helps remove some of the bottleneck that would be there.
It's a lot of pre-work, but so valuable, and it can last for years. I mean, some people have those, some organizations, I should say, have those for a long time. And that's what's built up their strength and their brand equity. The strength of their brand is built on those kind of systems.
Definitely.
So, all right. Sounds like we're getting clearer, Mike.
We're real. I think
having a clear vision of where this podcast is going to go. I like it.
If your strategy bucket is filled with water, it's still nice and clear, and you can see the bottom of the bucket.
Love it. Wow.
We're good.
All right.
I don't know how much further we can take this metaphor, but we've got a clear bucket.
Our audience has only so much patience for this kind of
And we're only halfway there. We're only talking about strategy and the kind of more foundational type clarity.
But wait,
there's more.
There's more.
Yeah.
Enlighten me.
Going back to our challenging project that we just weren't getting anywhere with, another place where clarity was needed was really defining what the project was.
Okay. So like
project
scope.
definition. Yeah, like scope. What are we doing? So a lot of this goes back to the goal, the overall goals and everything, but like, okay, what is the outcome we're trying to get here? And being like super clear on that, right? First and foremost, everybody agreeing, here's the thing we're working on. This is the project at hand. Here's who's responsible for doing each part, or what's expected at the end of this project.
But that sounds hard, Mike.
It's depending on the project. Like, you might not know everything. You probably don't know everything, depending on the scale and the scope of things. But you can say like, hey, see that hill over there? The tree at the top of that hill? That's where we're going. We don't know what the road's going to look like on the way there, but we know we're going to that tree on the top of the hill. But you can
also assume along the road there's going to be gravel, there'll be that snake, there's that butterfly that lands on your eyeglasses. Like, you can start to shape out a lot of the structure of the details of getting to that. And I argue, yes, it's maybe sometimes a little bit of drudgery, but outlining all those different things is the sauce as a marketing team. One, you're probably going to be doing a lot of it yourself, but at least then you don't have to use memory cycles to like, wait, there was that thing that I needed to, oh yeah, I need to get that approved.
So in our case, we had kind of the project actually had many little projects or tasks inside of there too. Like clearly defining what some of those are inside of that would have really helped too. Like really getting alignment of like what this piece is and what this piece is and what this piece is, especially if you got multiple people working and this person's here, this person's here, this person's here, clearly defining how those pieces actually meet this overarching project, definition and the definition of success for that project.
Well, and again, it goes back to checking against the strategy pieces that you've already kind of done all the work around, because that's, I think, where things fall off the rails too, is like, I'm going to make this thing and I'm going to go, does it keep testing it against that? Is it working towards that goal? So
if we were going to kind of recap what the clarity that we suffered in this, right? Like, really what we were trying to do is we put our focus too wide.
Yeah.
We went really wide because we weren't clear on a lot of these different pieces that needed to be more clear about. But what we ended up doing is trying to create a new thing, a brand new offer for something, right? At the same time, we were trying to create marketing for that offer and build a key thing, a key piece that's attached to the marketing, but it was a more specific like lead generator that would be part of the marketing. We're trying to do all three of those things and different people working on it. In hindsight, what we should have done is got the offer rock solid, taken the offer as a project. Been very clear, worked together on that and got that really solidified. Then we could work on the other pieces. But I don't think I think we kind of thought that they were all the same thing at one point. And we weren't really clear that the thing that we really needed to work on was the offer.
Yeah, because the problem with that, and this speaks to kind of taking things in the right progression. Don't start working on the end product before you kind of do that initial work, because that is exactly what happened. Was you need to do, because the offer that we had designed or came up with needed some refinement. Like it wasn't fully baked.
It wasn't fully baked.
Somebody needed to go in and bake it.
What was suffering there is that if somebody's not paying attention to some of the other clarity, other pieces of clarity we talked about, like goals and what we're really trying to do, that R&D might slip further from.
It goes, this might be better,
And at the same time, so I think you probably could have that happening over here. Like, let's just use an example of a bigger team. Like, let's say there's like 30 people working on this big initiative, right? Like you could meet together as a group and say, all right, here's what we want to do. We've got goals. Our goals are clearly defined. We know exactly who this is going for. I could see leadership coming in and saying, here's a product that I think we need to create. We want to get this done before this time frame because there's an opportunity coming up. We have to build the plane while it's in the air,
of course,
and build up the marketing because we have to hit the ground running here. This is really tough if you're doing like physical products. I'm dealing in the digital, like you're piecing together like thought leadership or your thinking or
expertise,
something. So more a service based. Let's just say service based, service based thing in this thing. If we're using our clarity checklist here, right? As leaders, it is possible to have somebody working on the offer, the deliver, what you're ultimately delivering, and the details of that, while the team responsible for marketing it knows what's going on. You would establish what the goals are for that project. You would establish who the target audience is for. You have a general understanding of what the project goals are. This is a service we are designing to meet this audience, and it should be at this price point, and it involves these core things.
Okay.
So you can do that, and you can set somebody forth to figure out the details of how that actually gets delivered. Your marketing knows that this is who we're trying to market to. This is their needs. This is how we're going to accomplish them. They can work on the marketing side of things, right?
Yeah.
But if you have to have all that stuff at the higher level really clearly defined.
Well, this gets to a point I keep thinking and going back to is usually, we like to say nothing new. There's nothing new anymore, right? It's a combination of all things that are existing. That's been the case for hundreds of years. Okay, whatever. But my point is with that statement is that we so often when we're making decisions, you and I are in leadership, so we make these decisions and come down off the mountaintop and give the team all of their assignments to do. And sometimes it's as easy as like, just copy that one campaign or that one offer. See, it's just like this. And it's so funny. And I think this is very common across the universe. How when you start to break things down and say, we're going to make the same exact offer. No offer is exactly the same. The mechanics are around it. Oh, could you just change that one thing? We even run into it when we're scoping projects for clients that come to us with an example. And it's like, we just want the same exact thing, except for that. But then the way that we got to go, the back end needs to go this way. And then, those details are the things that are like, they make it unique, but that's the thing that leadership sometimes is guilty of not really thinking it through and just assuming that it's just going to be this smooth sail through the whole thing,
I wonder how much of it is there is nothing new. Well, there is nothing new out there, right?
Yep.
But what you're exposed to and what I'm exposed to out in the world and our wealth of knowledge and what we've gained over the years and things we see, they're completely different. They completely shape our understanding of that. And so there's probably a connection that, like, if we talk between things and we have this, we say, oh, that's a citrus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's a lime. And you're like, oh, that's an orange, and we go forward and I'm doing my lime work. You're doing your orange work.
Yeah.
They're both citrus.
Exactly.
But, like that's where, it's where I think that's where a lot of that comes from too. So, but there's opportunity there too. That's where you're putting a spin on the thing that's new. Yes, exactly. It is ultimately, it's not really new, but the implementation of it might be new.
Your version of it, inevitably, it's never like just copy paste. But that's the thing that makes it different, unique, and everybody's situation is, as much as you try to systematize and make it exactly the same as that thing in your head or that thing you saw, the devil's in the details, and that's where.
I mean, if you don't have clarity, you're making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah. The thing that really works well, just to go back and reiterate this one more time, building out those systems builds trust within your whole team so that when leadership comes down with their hopes and dreams for this new offer and makes assumptions, at least there's something to test against that is already kind of settled law within your organization so that you can execute 98% of it pretty much on course with all of those unique changes that need to be implemented because your system and your version of it is unique.
And I mean, this kind of speaks to another one of the, like in our previous episode, we talked about other bottlenecks and everything about like bandwidth and everything like that. But if you have clarity on a lot of these things, it does make it easier to bring in outside help on these things and not have to go back and forth with that outside help all the time. It really just helps smooth out a lot of that, helps avoid that like spinning wheel of assumptions that you get kind of caught in.
Oh, I know. And that's where all hopes and dreams go to die. It's like you got to dive into those details and clarify. And sometimes you don't know right off off the bat where those are. But that's why you kind of have to keep checking in and making sure that the whole team is aligned with that stuff as they're working it through.
Yeah.
So we made a lot of assumptions, I guess,
a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
But you know what? We did get something out of it.
What?
This podcast.
Which is, I argue, the most important thing.
This specific episode of the podcast, I should say, not the podcast in general, not the back catalog of everything else we've done before, but this specific episode.
This episode here.
And we have a lot of pieces we can use for something in the future. Next time we kick it back off, we have got
we'll be just a little bit more clear.
Yep. We'll have our things to look at and make sure that we're hitting and checking against it.
Yeah.
The whole time. Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Hopefully that works for other people too.
That's why we do the podcast, Mike. Not for us. It's for the audience.
It's a little bit for us.
Is it?
A little bit.
I guess. It is good therapy. Do you feel better? I mean, you were sitting on the couch. I feel better, and I'm not even on the couch.
I feel good.
You feel adequate?
That's a perfect word for it.
You need to have a T-shirt maybe or a hat that just says adequate on it.
Like what's his name on 30 Rock? He always had a different word on the top of his hat.
Oh yeah,
time.
the writer.
Yeah, adequate one would be perfect.
Yeah, he was funny.
Yeah.
What is that guy doing now? I wonder if he's probably a writer, right?
I would assume so. There's a lot of writers that were playing writers on that show.
Well, Mike, this sounds like a wonderful place to stop talking and end this podcast and just get to work now that we're clear. What do you say?
Yes. I'm going to go hang out over there.
Love it. All right. Thanks, man.
See ya.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. For more information and other episodes, subscribe to the Marketing Team of One podcast on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify podcast networks. You can also chat with us on the r/Marketing Team of One subreddit or visit marketingteamofone.com to learn more.